Hi everybody, welcome to Highs and Lows, Campaign Highs and Lows. Once again, it means it's Friday and it's another whole week where, once again, I think the lows have got it again this week. They're on a roll.
Even lower.
Even lower, well, yeah. It's, some pretty low, deep lows to this week. We want to start with kind of a broader issue, which is kind of affecting the media industry and the film industry in general, and that is sort of the hashtag #MeToo social issue around the harassment allegations around Harvey Weinstein in Hollywood.
So we all
it's come to Adland in a big way.
Yeah, it has finally landed at least a little bit in Asia and in Adland. So we sort of wondered when the ripples would kind of reach here. And a couple of days ago we had one beginning of that when Cindy Gallop, who's a well-known industry consultant and gadfly and critic, hyped up on her social media to say that she would love to hear names of people in Adland who, like Harvey Weinstein, have made a habit or a career out of harassing people. And so that's quite a high-powered person coming out and saying, let's hear it, let's name names. And we've all seen in our social media feeds what an impact the #MeToo hashtag has had, with women telling their stories and men chiming in to say that they've seen it happen as well. So today's story, which is on our homepage now, and you can read the details there, involves the managing partner of Ogilvy in India, who made a post on Facebook where I believe she was trying to show some solidarity with the #MeToo people who were posting, but unfortunately in doing so, she started off, and I'll just read some of the bits here, by saying, "I have many issues with it at multiple levels. One, there are some experiences that are a part of growing up, especially in India. This should not be about that. Things like someone grabbing at you or pinching you, that's not abuse." And again, later on referencing that these are part of growing up anywhere in the world, a boss or a colleague trying to act fresh. This is not about that. So, needless to say, there was a fairly strong reaction to this, because it, as many of the commenters pointed out, it completely misses the point of the whole #MeToo hashtag. While it's trying to be supportive, it really amazingly kind of reveals an unconscious bias, which is part of what #MeToo has been doing. I think it's been teaching people that this is way more pervasive than they think, and it's been sort of causing people to come out of their shell and say something, and in some cases reveal something that is more telling about their own experience. So obviously, I think most people would agree that pinching or grabbing somebody is abuse, and especially if it's done in a workplace environment, it's sexual harassment. So there you go. I mean, and I guess I want to say also, we don't report on these things to make fun of anybody, or we don't do it with any sense of glee, but we do think it's an important conversation that needs to happen in the industry. So it's actually in a way good to see that happening.
You mean reporting on
Right.
if someone like the Harvey Weinstein story, or someone else that gets involved and wades into it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so she did fairly quickly apologize, and we'll get the apology up there on the screen for you too. Basically saying, my intent was not to make anyone feel unsafe or feel that if they were to face any form of harassment, I would not stand by them. And I imagine that that may be true, but certainly in this day and age, you have to be a bit more careful. And we're not without blame, because when we first heard about this story, we thought, some of us at least automatically thought that the managing partner of Ogilvy in India was probably a man, and then based on the comments that it was probably a man. And then that again underscores how sort of overwhelming and smothering the normalization of this kind of behavior can be, because even a woman in a prominent position, even her attitude underlying was, there's some amount of abuse that you just have to put up with. And I don't agree with that. It seems apparent that most people in the industry don't either.
He was trying to separate and say, it's like, oh, okay, with #MeToo, I mean, the whole point of #MeToo is everyone chiming in with their experience and being able to kind of document that, etc. That was the point that she thought was kind of annoying. Wait a minute, it's not everyone that has had a little something. We're talking in the Weinstein case about, but no, it's actually it is about every little thing that's kind of going on. That's kind of the whole point, is that this is, no one's talking about it, but it's much wider.
And I think importantly too, it's not about your definition of what would make you uncomfortable. It's about the people who actually, are suffering at this kind of behavior or incidents, right? So, to her credit for apologizing, and also I should say the CEO of India and Ogilvy also came out with a statement which I think was important, because it came right out and very, very clearly said, anybody in Ogilvy in India should feel free to report anything, no matter how small, that it would be. And I think that's that's the important message that leaders need to give to their employees if anything is going to change.
Yeah, it's a good move. I mean, if I broaden the issue to just the India society at large, I mean, it's a very patriarchal society. I'm just trying to put myself in her shoes, Chandawa's shoes. I think perhaps she was subjected to some kind of abuse, and in her younger days she wasn't helped. She wasn't given help, and she was in an environment that enabled her to speak out. I'm just sort of
we of course we don't know obviously anything about that. But.
And as we see that in China too. China's a bit of a special situation because there are a lot of women working in advertising industry, and they have quote unquote, to use an advertising term, a lot of share of voice. And the sort of harassment claims or stories that I've heard are probably after work hours, where it's sort of in a semi-work environment where there's a strong KTV, drinking culture, and then because it's not entirely at work and it's sort of semi-casual, these sorts of harassment actions then took place there. And because it's not very clear harassment crossing the line, these things never get reported. And I'm just thinking there might be the pervasiveness of this in China might be more than what we know.
Yeah. Well, I guess
this might bring more things to light. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we'd like to say that this is, obviously gender issues are something that campaign has made a focus in the last, at least, several years, but especially in the last year or so since we had Campaign 360 all about the issues last year, more about hiring and keeping women in the workforce. But obviously, we're very open to hearing any experiences that people, would like to share. So that's all. We're here.
I think, I mean, what's going to be interesting with the Cindy Gallop thing is just that, I wouldn't doubt if she does get names, if she wants names, and the question is then also kind of like how they then become investigated too. That's going to be kind of the next side of it, but can see where she's coming from. The as you sort of segged into the kind of issue of gender diversity and kind of what we were looking at there too, that still remains a hot topic. We saw that with campaign in the UK. They had a column this past week too on Private View, which is where creative directors come on and they talk about the work, etc. He prefaced his commentary with a whole look at saying kind of I'm bored. There's and kind of the point was that there's so much kind of lip service being done to things and not kind of carrying through. So this was Justin Tyndall, who is the chief creative officer at MNC Saatchi, and he said, I'm bored of how toothless, gutless, and increasingly anodyne, I had to look up the word,
what does it mean?
Like pain-numbing sort of, our industry has become. Bored of diversity being prioritized over talent. Board of creative sobriety, but it was that comment, board of diversity being prioritized over talent, that was what got a very response. And one of the more interesting ones was the executive creative director at Chale in London, Caitlin Ryan, who sort of wrote kind of a response saying, put yourself, basically, put us in a woman's shoes going through a woman's career as a creative, and looking at all the things that kind of you have to kind of face and go through, and then kind of put it back to this idea of I'm bored. It's like, look at everything that's kind of being done, and then, that's not the issue. It has to be an issue because of all these, challenges that we're facing. So that was kind of really great. That kind of, it made that point. And then, Justin came out and he apologized. We had comments from, Ford and some other brands that were also, said that, his comments were out of line. So it's created, quite a bit of controversy. But what strikes me is that it always seems to be, it's like we don't get those kind of great pieces, or when we're talking about initiatives that happen in the industry, an agency may have something and put out that news. That kind of stuff is seen as okay, it's all right. But it's when there's kind of a negative response to something that's out there. That's when we kind of get these comments. I'm not quite sure what it says. It's easy to kind of react to something negative than it is for us to get behind something positive, and it's kind of unfortunate that way. That's sort of the way I see it, anyways. Any thoughts that you guys had around this whole debate?
No, only that it is good to be. It is good that it's coming out front and center. I mean,
Right.
For probably decades, these things have been happening and haven't been talked about, haven't been brought out, haven't been aired in the media when they should be. And hopefully that environment is really just changing so that
I think
it can happen now.
Yeah, and again, I think it's a thing where it's like, like the first instance, it's the the wording getting you in trouble. It's like maybe the meaning. Cause, I mean, in his apology, I mean, Justin Tittle was saying that like it's more that I don't like the fact that kind of lip service is being paid to these things, and that we're not kind of it's short term. We're going for short term solutions, and it's just we should be kind of looking at these things in a more holistic way. But you don't get that across by saying I'm bored with prioritizing diversity over talent. So still when it comes to these issues, just wording is so key and so important. Anyways, on a different note,
we thought we'd end today by after all that. We thought we'd give you something a little bit more fun and also something more fun to look at than our faces, lovely as they are. So one of the pieces that we carried this week that I quite enjoyed was about GIFs, or GIFs if you prefer. I'm not going to get into that whole battle. I prefer.
Tomato.
I have my preference, but I'll keep it to myself. Anyway, this was a column that we ran a few days ago by Tanya Wilson, who is a consultant and based in Singapore, and she recently organized, along with some people from BBH, an art exhibit focusing on GIFs or GIFs. So they had like 50 pieces of art that were sort of interpreting the GIF or using the GIF in different formats, and that was interesting enough in itself. And there's a website online where you can see some of the stuff they displayed. But when she contacted me, I asked her to write about how this would impact marketing, and so she wrote what I think was a pretty thoughtful column about how the basic premise of it being that quick and repeating moving image has a special kind of power, and that marketers perhaps haven't made enough use of it as much use of it as they could. And so
it's almost hypnotizing.
Yeah.
The psychology behind
exactly.
it, looking at something repeatedly.
Exactly, and there's a quote in there from in that piece from Heidi Latinen, who's a content strategist at BBH. And I think this is a great quote. She said, "GIFs seem to touch a chord with a deep-rooted human need to experience positive emotions in repetition. We get so involved in that feeling that we want to feel it over and over again, like how children want the same story read to them over and over again." I think that's quite true, and some of the examples that you're hopefully seeing on the live feed right now show that. They're just some stunning pieces of art that you just can't help. And I will testify, as I was editing the story, I found myself just kind of sitting there and watching them over and over again.
Yeah.
The emotional reason behind it, just looking at it,
there you go.
indeed it's very mesmerizing. And then when you apply this kind of format to certain markets like China, again, China has it solves some very practical problems. Look, mobile data downloads, like you don't have enough bandwidth for full videos, and the hyper-fragmentation of the market means that their attention span is really, really short, 8 seconds, 6 seconds, 3 seconds, what have you. And all this is giving marketers actually a new toy. And to be honest, the GIFs have been popular already in China on mobile marketing for a long time before even the West.
I like that one with the hand moving in.
Yeah, that's right.
There's something about those where there's just a little bit of movement.
Yeah.
Everything else stays the same. That's quite compelling. Here's an actual brand example.
And look at the art, the amount of illustration and the detail in these GIFs/GIFs. I think more award-winning than some of the overly emotional videos that we get all the time. And to be honest, one of these GIF creative directors who love GIFs/GIFs in China said the production is actually pretty easy, short lead time. You need to get 10 of this out, you can get it much faster than, say, one of these hero visuals or KVs that cost way more money and way more time to make.
What I liked in that story too, but when you talk about kind of brands, is that now again I forget. I believe it was the person from BBH, and she was saying that just like brands want to tell it all, but it's like they should just don't be so selfish, like or don't try to like say too much, etc. Just like this will at least get you kind of interaction
Yeah.
with people that you wouldn't normally.
Don't demand
normally
5
get.
minutes of my time,
Exactly.
or 15 minutes of my time all the time. Maybe. Maybe
Oh,
30
you call
seconds
it
is
brand
good.
arrogance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than trying to exactly tell it, kind of you want to engage with the audience. You have so much to tell them. You want them to engage with you on so many levels, but sometimes it's maybe just a kind of a quick interaction. That's all they have time for, anyways. What I didn't like GIFs for when I see social medias, to me, is it always seemed that it was like just kind of an easy alternative to sort of a lazy person's alternative to expressing yourself, truly. So in other words, I'm not going to tell you how I really feel. I'm just going to select from multiple choice here, A, B, C, whatever, and throw up
Right.
a GIF, and then it comes through. But in some of these examples from the story that we have on our site, some of them are ultra creative, right?
Yeah.
And so the work that's now kind of going into them is actually more expressive than most people could be in their regular wording. So I think that sort of takes care of that. The other thing I noticed is that like you said, Jenny, it's mesmerizing, and you do sometimes think you see something, so that's why you want to see it again too. It's like, what did I really see that? And then you end up paying more attention to it than you think you would.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a polarizing sort of format, because I know some creatives will disagree with you to say it's not lazy. The amount of work into one of these, it's actually really, really tedious.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the clip from a cheap sitcom that just
Yeah.
somebody rolling their eyes or something like that
those
again and again.
Same one that you see all the time, for sure.
But these are really really high end.
And it's actually the 30th birthday of GIFs.
So I think that's a high. I think that
Okay, that's a high.
we've agreed that the level of creative around GIFs is elevating. So we have one high this week.
Good.
So yeah, that's about it. Sorry if you appeared to see me looking at my phone. We are looking for comments. If any of you want to send us a question or anything like that, you can feel free to do that.
Let's plug a little bit of stuff that's on the website. We
Absolutely.
this week we had more back and forth from WPP and ADK and that controversy.
The slugfest continues.
What else? We had a brand health check about HTC, looking into the future of that Asia-based brand.
They had money from Google that's
That's right.
coming in.
That's right.
They might be poised for a comeback.
You can keep up on the people moves and the business wins as always, and anything else. Next week we'll have the final 10 of our 40 under 40 list premiering on Monday.
This is the
so
last.
Keep an eye out for that.
This is the last group. So once these are out, then the our 40 are complete.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will be looking for that. That comes out Monday for everyone's subscription. So thanks again for watching Highs and Lows, and we'll see you again next week, next Friday.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.